Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening to all participants in Indonesia and of course other Southeast Asian countries and also from another nation. And also good morning and good afternoon to those coming from different parts of the world. First, please allow me to praise our God, the Almighty, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, for His countless blessing that have allowed us to be here today in this webinar. On behalf of Faculty of Veterinary Medicine IPB University in Bogor, Indonesia, I would like to welcome everyone today on our international webinar on One Health with the theme Understanding One Health Concept, Implication to Zoonosis and Beyond. We in our faculty are delighted to host today's webinar as we excitedly welcome participants coming from different regions of the world. We have actually more than 250 people registered to attend this webinar. And we have participants coming from neighboring countries such as from India, from Nepal, Malaysia, Turkey, and others. Thank you for participating in this event. One Health has been accepted globally as an important concept that is required to support the health of humans, animals, and the environment. The implementation of One Health is critical to anticipate various problems, such as emerging infectious disease and other zoonoses, but also other issues such as non-communicable diseases, climate change, and others that will have significant implications to mankind and to its surrounding ecosystem. Tonight's webinar is mainly aimed for students of different educational background, consistent with the fact that One Health concept requires multidisciplinary approach. We hope that this event can serve as a good opportunity to increase the exposure of veterinary students as well as students from other backgrounds to the One Health concept, of course, since early in their academic years to understand One Health principle as well as examples of real-life issues and challenges relevant to One Health implication. Please allow me to express our sincere thanks and gratitude to our wonderful speakers joining from Malaysia and from the United States. We have Dr. Nur Indah from University Putra Malaysia, Malaysia, and Professor Jeff Wyatt. Hello, Jeff. Very nice to meet you again from University of Rochester. We are honored to have these two experts will share their knowledge and experience in their respective fields in regard to the implementation of One Health. We highly appreciate your support to this event. To all the organizing committee members, our young lecturers of IPB University, as supported by all student organizations of Faculty of Veterinary Medicine IPB University, we thank you all for your efforts in hosting this wonderful event. I wish everyone a fruitful webinar tonight. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Prof, for the remarkable opening. So as mentioned before, this webinar is aiming those who are coming from every backgrounds related to the One Health concept. And we're also hoping all of the participants could gain more knowledge regarding to the topics that we will have tonight. So after we hear the remarks, please let me invite all the participants to have their camera turned on because we will have a quick photo session. Okay, so I'm inviting you all to open your camera, to turn on your camera, because we will have a quick photo session first before we get into the main event. Okay, so please be prepared for the photo session. Prepare your best expression and also your best pose. Okay, for the committee, please be ready for screenshotting. Okay, so in here we have 4 slides. I think we will wait until 1922 here in Indonesia, 2 minutes for everyone to turn on their camera first. Okay. Oh, I think 1 minute is enough. We'll wait 1 minute for everyone to turn on their camera. We'll have a quick photo session before we start the event. Okay. Prepare your best expression and also your best pose for tonight occasion. Okay, it's already 1 minute. So I will start from the first slide. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, move on to the second slide. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, move on to the third slide. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, and then the last slide. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get into the main part of the webinar. Okay, yeah, we will meet our amazing moderator and speakers. But before that, please let me read the CV of tonight's moderator first. Okay, for the comedy, please show the CV first. Okay, so the name is Dr. Fitria Nur Anissa Dewi, DVM, PhD, Cert LIM. She is now a lecturer at the Departments of Clinics, Reproduction and Pathology and Faculty of Veterinary Medicine IPB University. She got the DVM title from IPB University, Indonesia, PhD title from Wake Forest University, USA, and certified in laboratory animal medicine from University of Guelph, Canada. She's also affiliated to Primate Research Center as research scientist and IACUC chair, Deputy Director in Office and Scientific Publication and Strategic Information, IPB University, Acting Chair in Indonesia Laboratory Animal Veterinarians Association. She's also the President of Indonesian Association for Laboratory Animal Science. Okay, wow. What an amazing moderator we have tonight. Okay, so I think let's greet Dr. Fitria. Hello, Doctor. How are you?
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Dia. Selamat malam. Selamat malam, Bapak Ibu semua. Okay, so
Okay,
yeah.
From here, I will hand you the following session. So
All
if
right.
you're ready,
All right.
The time and screen is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Dias. Good evening. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat malam and good afternoon for some of you here who are joining us from different parts of the world, and actually good morning to our speaker, Pak Jeff, Professor Jeff, joining us from the US, and while Dr. Indah is joining us from Malaysia. So it's a bit late here in Malaysia, one hour ahead of us. So yeah, so I'm very delighted to be able to be here tonight, leading the session for this wonderful webinar that we have tonight on One Health. If the committee can move to the next slide, I'm going to introduce the speaker. To stop the CV. Panitianya mungkin bisa next slide ya. Okay. Yeah, so everybody, we have two wonderful speakers joining us tonight. So we have Dr. Nur Indah from University Putra Malaysia. Selamat malam, Dr. Indah.
Selamat malam.
Yeah, so thank you for joining us. And we also have Professor Jeff Wyatt joining us from Rochester, New York. Good morning, Pak Jeff, Professor Jeff.
Good morning, good evening.
Yes. So yeah, so it's really an honor for me to be able to host or lead the session for this wonderful webinar tonight. So we will start with Dr. Indah session, and then afterwards we're going to continue with Professor Jeff session. So for this is going to be hopefully a very fruitful and very informative webinar, as we will talk about basic understanding of One Health, but we're going to look at it from different angles, as Dr. Indah will focus or emphasize on how One Health is important for anticipating emerging infectious diseases. So looking at it from a zoonosis perspective. And afterwards, Dr. Jeff will share One Health approach in a broader sense, not related to zoonosis or EID, but how it's how it affects like conservation, ecology, our ecosystem, and hopefully in a more broader sense can heal our planet. So yeah, so I'm going to start with Dr. Indah introducing her wonderful CV here. Dr. Nur Indah Ahmad, DVM, MSc, PhD, is a senior lecturer at the Department of Veterinary Pathology and Microbiology and Faculty of Veterinary Medicine in UPM, Malaysia. She obtained her DVM from UPM in 2007 and her master's in veterinary science from Utrecht University in Netherlands. And she obtained her PhD from the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. And she's an expert in One Health, actually, where a lot of her research interest is related to zoonosis and AMR and antimicrobial resistance and human-animal interaction and how it risks to zoonosis diseases. And she's a very busy person. Next slide, please. She has a lot of other appointments where she's currently the deputy coordinator for Mayohun, the Malaysia One Health University Network. And she's also the representative of the same organization for the One Health workforce next generation for One Health training and empowerment. So I would say the right person to give this tonight's talk, introductory talk about One Health for our a lot of students attending tonight, Dr. Indah. And as you can see in the screen, she's also have a lot of appointment in UPM, in the laboratory and ethics committee and others. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Indah to give her talk about One Health and anticipating emerging infectious diseases. And Dr. Indah, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much for the very kind introduction, and I really hope that I will be doing justice tonight. All right. Okay, so I'll share my screen. Okay, so I think they need to stop the current. Okay, all right. Thank you. So. Okay, all right. Okay, sorry about that. So thank you very much for the very kind introduction. So I'm very happy to be here with all of you, trying to uphold the name of One Health to all of you students and lecturers, fellow academics. I'm really happy to be here. And so yeah, as introduced just now, so I would be wanting to share on the One Health approach and in anticipating emerging infectious diseases, including zoonotic diseases. All right, and yeah, so just trying to bring in some bit of element of interaction with all of you. So what can you see here? Like if anybody wants to unmute their mic, and if you can, and then what can you actually see here? Okay, so I think you'll be answering it quietly, but it's basically nature in balance. You've got the animals living in their natural habitat, okay? And then probably this is what you are actually imagining as well in relation to the illustration just now, which I borrowed from onehealthlessons.com from a good friend of mine, Dr. Deborah Thompson. And okay, so what happens? What do you see next? Okay, so this is us, human beings, moving in, and then probably some of us chopping some trees away and then getting closer and closer to the natural habitat of the animals that naturally live happily over there. And as you can see, as time passes by, what happens to the temperature that is of the global temperature, you know, and then as we also more and more people coming in, so you would see this kind of thing that might be happening all around us, okay? And then, so at the same time, you would also see the extinction or removal of dispersal of certain important animal species that is required in that ecosystem to maintain the equilibrium. And so you would see more and more of the animals disappearing from the picture, which one of the reasons might be due to what we see in the news every single day. I think it's not difficult to listen to get news on poaching, illegal poaching, smuggling of animals from Malaysia, Indonesia, and our region especially. So you have these innocent animals over here being displaced involuntarily from the area that they live, that they hunt for food, and then they live happily ever there. So when we bring humans into the picture, probably it spells problem. So, and which then might lead to those sort of like disturbance into the equilibrium, into the harmonious relationship, that association between human, animal, and the environment. Because of the disturbance, it might then causes certain infectious diseases that were able to cross or breach the barrier and to cross species spill over to us, to human beings. And some of the diseases have the capability to be spread quite fastly all across the globe. And one of the examples, as I said, we have a zoonotic emergence, COVID-19, as we are living in right now, COVID-19 pandemic. And so from those images that I've shown just now, I hope that you're able to see the three main domains or elements that shares this planet Earth. You know, you have us, the human beings. You also have the animals, wild animals, domestic animals, livestock, and you also have the environment. Okay, so when you are looking at any particular zoonotic diseases or emerging infectious diseases, you cannot run away from the overlapping concept of these three elements over here. And that is what we call One Health, where it is a concept that recognizes the health of people, animal, and also the environment or ecosystem of which we are a part together, and it's always interconnected. All right. And so the three elements are coordinating, communicating, and collaborating. So you need to be able to coordinate, communicate, and collaborate when you are doing a One Health approach, working in a One Health approach in ensuring to attain an optimal health for not only us, but also for animals and also the environment, okay? Right, so for any particular emerging infectious diseases, so majority of it are zoonotic, it's of animal origin. And then it is, so how do these infectious diseases over here that you may see happen to be able to become virulent, have the ability to become virulent, and somehow crosses the barrier and spill over to us, to human population, okay? So, so there are many factors that will trigger this, okay? It's multifactorial, it's always never just one sole factor. It might be like a domino effect from one lead to another and to another, and it can also be an entangled sort of like a situation, okay? All right, so it's either way, if the pathogens might breach and reach us, or it's because human beings might go into the environment where these pathogens live and causing us to become susceptible and become infected, okay? All right, and so I'm pretty sure some of you have seen this image over here, trying to predict the relative risk of emerging zoonotic infectious diseases around the globe. And as you can see over here, highlighting the South Asian region, particularly in Malaysia and Indonesia, where it looks, well, medium to high risk of potential hotspots for emerging zoonotic diseases. And at the same time, there's a report about the countries that are best and worst prepared for an epidemic. And as you can see here, zooming into our region over here, we might be a bit more prepared, but actually more can still be done in order to face the calamities, potential pandemics in the future. So, just focusing in on to our region specifically, these hotspots, are predicted because of the intense population growth that is happening, changes from rural to urbanization of areas, the widespread use of agriculture in land that used to be a forest, wild animal trafficking, smuggling, poaching that is still happening, and then in certain areas where healthcare and sanitation might be not so well access to the communities living there, and also the changes in environment, including climate change. And so these are all happening at the same time as we speak. And on the other side of it, there may be challenges in terms of cultures and beliefs, spread of infodemic, panic, and then barriers to effective communication between policymakers and also public, and the interest in terms of the stakeholders in channeling out funding. They might have, for this year, they might have this particular aspect or disease at the top of the priority list. So maybe any of the zoonotic diseases might not be the priority, and so funding might be limited. So taken together, these are actually challenges that are faced by us, the current One Health workforce, and possibly it's still going to be ongoing if faced by the future One Health workforce if nothing is being done to tackle this. And as you can see, it's because it's multifactorial at so many levels, at so many domains. So it's actually a complex, wicked problem. So when you are trying to address these wicked problems, of course, you will be facing with many challenges. So, oftentimes you will not be able to handle it alone. A government, a ministry will not be able to handle it alone. Just one agency, for sure, it's going to be taking a whole lot of time, and it defeats the purpose of containing a particular disease outbreak. And so I'm trying to say that no one particular agency or even person or department is superior than the other when we're talking about One Health, when we're talking about emerging infectious diseases, zoonotic diseases. People need to be aware of that and then be working together, okay? And so again, bringing in the term of wicked problem over here, you'll be able to see that this one thread of wool entangled upon this one cute cat over here. So probably this doesn't look much complicated as the next one in the next page, where you'll be able to see a lump of entangled threads, which to me, it represents the different angles or probably risk factors or determinants of a particular disease clumped together. So it's very complicated and complex and also interlinked between one and another. As you can see over here, possibly you would be imagining One Health at peace, whereby all the elements are at a very fragile equilibrium, and then for any disturbances introduced by any of the changes that I will share on after this, it might lead up to a very complex, entangled, wicked problem. And so apart from COVID-19, I'm pretty sure you have heard about MERS, SARS, Ebola, and avian flu. And recently, earlier this year, there was a report about avian influenza H5N8 infecting humans in Russia. So it keeps on happening. You keep on hearing this kind of news popping up, okay? And so the impact and response that we see from the previous outbreaks, disease outbreaks, reported about death, economic loss. In certain low-income countries, funding allocation for healthcare is limited. So when a zoonotic disease outbreak happens, it will affect mostly, especially for the underprivileged or for the susceptible groups or communities. And then there is also involvement in the terms of cost of treatment, hospitalization, work absenteeism. And then at the same time, because there might be disturbance in the animal, so you might be having sick animals that you would then have to cull and compensate as a reactive control response. So people will begin to think about food security. What happens after this? Are we able to sustain? Are we able to feed every person in our country? So these are some of the impact that you might come after an outbreak. Okay, and then if you read the news about wild animal population, some of the certain parts of the society might be blaming them, these wild animals, as the source of pathogen, and so they may vilify, and then this sort of misconception might then introduce a problem, because they might then just search for these animals and kill them because of such belief. And so the impact is not just limited to hospitalization. It's not just to us, but it also affects elements in other domains. And then when I said just now in terms of reactive response, as you may see from the previous pandemics or disease outbreaks, most of the time the response is reactive. When the thing already happens, and then all the plans coming in. So of course, early control is key to prevent, for example, an effect. If you see over here, just to illustrate the dam, if it collapsed, then sort of like, oh, it's already collapsed. So what do we do? How do we fix this? So it might be that we need to move away from just reacting to a particular outbreak, a particular problem, and then try to mitigate the risks or the determinants, and then maintain it or repair the barrier before the pathogen, the infectious agent, starts to cross into our population. Yeah, so we are trying to anticipate in terms of anticipating an outbreak, an emerging zoonotic disease outbreak. We need to go back to the One Health concept. Of course, we have human beings, and then we've got the pathogens, okay, the inherent properties of microbes which might be living in the different wild animals, different animals that are present around us. And of course, environmental changes, either natural or anthropogenically introduced. So in predicting or anticipating a particular event to occur, we have to consider each and every aspect of this, which is pretty much complex. And at the same time, time is also the essence. So when you talk about epidemics, will it be more frequently happening after this? Okay, because of the rapid spread, ability for a disease to spread from one part of the world to another due to the borderless world. Today you're here, tomorrow you can be in Europe or in the US. So making it difficult to contain, as we can see in the pandemic that we are facing just now. So how do we tackle, remember the picture of the dam, the collapsed dam, how do we use that as a model to basically prevent the collapse from happening? So we need to understand what is actually happening around the dam area pre-collapse, okay? So each factors must then be assessed for risk for a particular zoonotic disease outbreak to happen. So we must properly examine each of the potential risk factor, okay? And oftentimes, as we see the entangled wool just now, the determinants are often cross sectors, okay? It's not just in one particular human anthropogenic activities, okay? Sometimes the changes happens as well in the animal world and in the environment. So it is often interlinked. All right, so which is why we are empowering, we're advocating for a One Health approach. So it's basically turning or translating the One Health concept into a One Health approach. It's time to act. So you are taking the concept of acknowledging the interlink between the three elements over here, and then changing it, and then into for it to work. Okay, so you're working together integratively across different disciplines within the three domains, especially locally, nationally, and also globally, to attain optimal health for everyone and every element. Okay, so if you can see previously, or if you remember, so One Health involves everyone. So there's three main verbs that starts with a co in front of it, and which actually stands for collaborating, communicating, and coordinating across sectors, across different One Health players in different fields. So working together is key to One Health. And why are we talking about One Health approach right now? Of course, as you have seen before in the previous slides, because of the rapid change in the environment, spread, globalization, and then at the same time, the pressure on natural systems as well. The land is being cleared for anthropogenic activities, and then it may then facilitate the emergence of these infectious diseases to spill over to humans. And then at the same time, the efficiency of handling a particular problem would be improved by conducting or handling it in a One Health manner, because you're able to share resources, protocols, fundings without having to start from scratch. Okay. Okay, and so this is an example of from the Predict project. I'm not involved in this project, but I see it as a very nice findings and report that illustrates the beautiful effect of working together in a One Health approach in terms of mitigating the risk to prevent an outbreak. So instead of just waiting for the outbreak and then preparing with an emergency response plans to respond to it, so instead of doing that, why not you look at it in a continuous perspective manner. So this is what they have been doing in Tanzania for the health for animals and livelihood improvement. What they have over here, as you can see, represented by the different icons, they have a human and animal surveillance team, and also behavior assessment team and lab team as well. So the experts from different groups, different fields that you are able to see working together. So they have one from human side and one from the community sensitization side. Okay, so basically they're taking into account not just the hardcore science, biology, disease, pathology, but also they are looking at the social aspects as well. And then they run active surveillance in terms of looking at this particular group of humans who are living near the fringe of the forest, for example, and then they're looking at the sampling also the wildlife that lives near there. So they are doing it concurrently, simultaneously, and this would then lead to a complete database. So it's holistic. It involves surveillance pathogens or potential zoonotic pathogens that are present in the wildlife living near these villages, for example. And so from there, they can predict, they can assess, they can run a risk assessment to see, hey, if these humans over here are doing this particular factor, it might increases the chances or expose them more to being infected with this potential zoonotic pathogen. So intervention plan can come or prevention plan can come in, and it can be done more effectively because you're actually involving both the human and also the animal in the same time and location setting, okay? And similarly, so for malaria, zoonotic malaria, there's also a project that is called Monkey Bar. So again, it's multidisciplinary of researchers from different countries across the globe to identify the risk factors and control strategies for Plasmodium malacei. And so you can see that it involves different aspects or elements in researching about this particular disease, about the host in animals, and then the environment as well. So so I wanted to show you that it takes a whole village to actually work on prevention of a particular zoonotic diseases. So it's not just a one person or one man practice or one man team. You need you need multiple people from different sectors, from different geographical locations to coming together in the name of One Health. Okay. All right, and then so there's also a paper, I think it's very interesting that they were able to share a working group on the proof of concept of One Health, because people would then say that, oh, does it work? Is it just like a concept? Or, I mean, are you able to show that it works? So this particular working group over here are able to show that they were able to extract important findings from researchers or studies that use that investigates One Health issues. Okay, so and then they were able to say that, hey, it is actually proven to be feasible to integrate. It's possible to integrate human, animal, and environmental health efforts together. And then not only that, they were able, like an integrated approach that considers these all three elements or domains will be able to improve prediction, one, in the case of the Rift Valley fever, and at the same time can also improve control of certain disease. So improvement in prediction and also control of a particular disease. And then for further information, you can actually go and have a read through this very interesting and thorough paper by this the working group over here. All right. And then when you talk about One Health as well, it actually popped up in this article. So it was published online in November 2019. So that was circa like a few weeks later, we heard about COVID-19 outbreak, the new novel disease that affects human beings. And then so in this particular article, they proposed that for a new 21st century science for effective epidemic response. And not surprisingly, that we have One Health over here as one of the key area to be integrated into this so-called 21st century epidemic responses. Okay, and then so many of these articles that keeps on popping up, you know, especially in the age of COVID-19 pandemic, realization that it's important to work cross sectors. So the theme, if you can see, it's quite similar, that or most of the articles, it supports for the foundational step to build a global community of open science that pursues collaborative, interdisciplinary, and impactful work across disciplines, okay, in predicting, in trying to mitigate the risk factors of a particular disease, for example, and then basically to attain One Health. All right. And also, yeah, it's also being discussed also in this paper. So we must be prepared to recognize the signs, identifying the threat, and work together to reduce the spread of infections and health consequences before they harm human and also animal. Okay, so all in all, as you can see, what I've been presented just now, it's basically the advantages, okay, of using One Health approach in tackling zoonotic emerging infectious diseases. So we are trying to move to shift upstream the disease prevention rather than being a reactive response to being more proactive, and then trying to mitigate the risk factors so that it will not even be able to breach the barrier, to cross over to human population. Or if it does, we are able to minimize the number of human infections, okay? So the key is basically to prevent the emergence at the source before it becomes a One Health problem. Okay. And so when we talk about One Health approach, of course, you were talking about the team. Okay, so you need to have a proper coordination, a proper plan when you're setting up the team. Who do you want to be on the team to perform this risk assessment for a particular disease that you think might happen in few next years to come if you don't do anything about it in this particular area? Okay, so of course, you have the team. A normal, typical One Health team would include this, but of course not limited to, for example, disease ecologists, epidemiologists, wildlife virologists, data scientists, and also social scientists. So they would be ideal situation. They would be working harmoniously, sharing data together, sharing resources together, messaging together, no barriers in terms of bureaucracy, in terms of red taping. So they are able to share. So because this is very important to avoid the extension of time in handling a particular disease. And when you have this One Health team, you would be able to not only do the usual targeted surveillance for potential candidate zoonotic infectious pathogens, but also complement it with the help from the newest technology, next generation of zoonotic risk assessment tool, for example, by using the genomic or metagenomic data or aspect. And then so by doing so, ideally, you would be seeing this to be a very efficient, and it's going to work. So whatever that this team does, it will help in terms of predicting or mitigating the risk factors for a particular potential zoonotic outbreak. Right. Okay. So we're looking at a more proactive approach, proactive manner. And so as I said before, mitigation starts at before the pathogens are able to breach the barrier and enter human populations. And so once you have identified what could be the risk factors, what could be the determinants that might increase the chances or probability of this to happen, you may then come together, set up your team, assemble your team, and then develop strategies and plans. And so it must be, of course, holistic, because right now you already have people from the different sectors, agencies, departments who already know their role and then what to do. So the plan is really important for it to be coordinated, for it to be, for them to all be on the same page so that there will be no conflict that would then hinder progress in implying those strategies. Okay, and it's not just by developing a strategy and then that's it. You keep it on the shelf or you keep it on the, in your computer. It needs to be dispersed to the One Health players, to the key players or the One Health workforce in all of the involved sectors. Okay. All right. And the rule coming in. Right. So from all of this, we are able to see the three core words of One Health: coordination, collaboration, and communication are very vital. It's the heart to a working One Health approach. And so what happens if you are faced with conflict when communicating about a particular issue, a particular problem? So the One Health workforce would, so the team members would have to be able to resolve it in a mature way. So agreeing to disagree, for example, okay? So these are probably some of the soft skills that is pretty much important when you're working together across sectors. And as you can see, we cannot just be responding, well, it's easy to say than done, but ideally, of course, we would not want another epidemic or pandemic outbreak to happen. It costs a lot. And so we need to find a much more proactive, a bit more smarter way in terms of trying to tackle it before the dam collapse. All right. And so that's why in curriculum nowadays, we see universities acknowledging the importance of training the future One Health students, not just from veterinary background, not just from medical backgrounds, but also from the rest of the relevant related background. Even though people would say that, oh, I don't know how, I'm a student in economics, for example. How do I help? How do I contribute? I'm a student in engineering. How do I help? How do I contribute? So actually, if you were to have a proper plan, these people actually do play a vital role and can contribute as well. And yeah, in most of the universities right now, One Health training is implemented. It probably is embedded, okay, if indirectly, probably in certain courses at universities, to ensure that we equip the future One Health workforce with the necessary competencies to face future challenges related to zoonotic emerging infectious diseases. Okay, and so for example, within our region, Southeast Asia One Health University Network, there's a number of core competencies and technical competencies that you can see here in the picture. So you have just the basic hardcore science that we are all day in, day out going to lectures, classes, okay, that we are learning. And then at the same time, the soft skills that you may gain through clubs, through different activities, activities outside that will then equip you to complement. So you've got the brainy side and you've also got the hard side to it. And then when it comes together, it complements each other so that you'll be better equipped. Okay, and then in Malaysia as well, I'm pretty sure in Indonesia and in most of the countries, we are realizing this. And then we have done many activities we're trying to incorporate as, including tourism students, education students, biomedical students. So we're trying to reach out to the more the merrier, okay? So at least they are aware of what One Health is and the importance of it. And again, this is what we don't want to be going back again to the silo mentality. Okay, so this is basically the opposite to One Health approach. And when you are working in silo, you're not communicating, collaborating, or coordinating, it's going to end up in a very messy situation, and it reduces the efficiency basically. And this is basically what you do not want. Okay, so this is hopefully to all the students over here, we are able to see the importance of One Health approach, One Health concept, and the importance of having effective communication and all the other important soft skills in equipping you for future challenges to come. So I think now it's the time, hopefully, that you're able to appreciate that it's important to be working together. No one person knows more or everything. So you would have to tap in, to your other friends that are in different fields. This is basically the essence of trying to empower our One Health future workforce. Okay, so the key to success is collaboration. And with that, I would like to end my talk. Be happy to take any questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Indah, for the very insightful talk. So it's very comprehensive, and I think it's really eye-opening for students, I think, because as you said, that this is how do we take this concept into an actual approach, right? So everybody probably here knows about, okay, now One Health is becoming the thing, becoming the go-to approach or the go-to solution for the anticipating and preventing the emerging infectious diseases and future pandemics. But it's really, you emphasize on how it's important to understand the concept from the core, to prevent from the source, and how to work together and try to actually bringing this actual concept into an actual approach to becomes a feasible strategy for multi-sectors to actually do something about this and prevent future pandemics. So thank you for that. And allow me to briefly summarize in Bahasa Indonesia for because maybe like 60 or 70% of our audience is from Indonesia, so I would probably briefly summarize. Jadi Bapak Ibu sekalian dan para mahasiswa yang saya hormati, jadi tadi sudah disampaikan oleh Dr. Indah ya, seperti tujuan dari webinar ini memang kita sifatnya introductory ya, karena memang ditargetkan untuk mahasiswa, dan bagaimana pemahaman One Health itu sudah disampaikan oleh Dr. Indah menjadi suatu konsep yang harus dipahami dari awal dari tingkatan kita masih di pendidikan gitu ya, itu suatu konsep yang harus dipahami bersama, karena tadi diketahui bahwa sebagian besar dari EID itu nantinya atau Emerging Infectious Diseases itu adalah penyakit-penyakit zoonosis, dan area di mana kita tinggal di Southeast Asia ini memang hotspots gitu ya, jadi future pandemics itu mungkin sekali muncul di area kita, meskipun tadi kita terkategorinya di area yang mungkin lebih more prepared gitu ya, lumayan lah gitu ya, not the most prepared tapi lumayan gitu ya, more prepared. Jadi ini merupakan suatu masalah yang kompleks, dan tadi bagaimana kita merubah mindset dari sekedar reaktif menjadi antisipatif lalu menjadi preventif begitu ya, itu tadi ditekankan oleh Dr. Indah. Jadi bagaimana kita berubah dari reaktif, antisipatif dan preventif ini juga salah satunya adalah dengan menerapkan One Health approach tadi, bagaimana ini memang didekati dari sudut pandang tidak hanya kesehatan manusianya, tapi kesehatan hewan dan juga lingkungan, dan bagaimana bekerja tadi berkolaborasi, berkomunikasi, berkoordinasi antar multidisciplinary pihak-pihak multisektor begitu ya. Nah, tadi pertanyaan yang juga dilontarkan oleh Dr. Indah, does it work gitu ya? Apakah ini memang apakah ini konsep saja gitu, tapi kemudian bagaimana implementasinya? Nah, tadi dari presentasi Dr. Indah sudah disampaikan beberapa bukti, laporan dilakukan oleh beberapa kelompok, pendekatan yang memang multisektoral ini bekerja sama dengan berbagai latar belakang pendidikan, latar belakang keilmuan. Ini mudah-mudahan menjadi suatu approach yang bila didukung dengan tadi next generation zoonotic assessment approach gitu ya, dengan teknologi-teknologi yang semakin maju untuk kemudian memprediksi penyakit-penyakit dan lain sebagainya, ini mudah-mudahan dengan diawali para mahasiswa mau mengenal konsep ini dari awal, sudah mendapatkan One Health training sejak di bangku kuliah gitu, mudah-mudahan kemudian menjadi future leaders yang memang memahami bahwa pendekatan untuk mencegah suatu penyakit ini sifatnya harus multidisciplinary dan saling berkolaborasi. Kira-kira mungkin seperti itu Bapak Ibu dan para mahasiswa yang hadir pada hari ini. So thank you so much Dr. Indah for that very wonderful presentation. And now I will introduce our next speaker, Professor Jeff Wyatt. Good morning, Professor Wyatt, Pak Jeff. Yeah. So a bit of introduction on Professor Jeff Wyatt's background. Professor Jeff Wyatt is a veterinarian and a professor in comparative medicine in University of Rochester in New York. Rochester, New York, from the US. And he also is an environmental justice advocate for the Seneca Park Zoo in Rochester, New York. And he received his DVM from the Ohio State University and the Master's in Public Health from the University of Rochester. And he's a board certified specialist in laboratory animal medicine, which actually where we cross paths between myself and Professor Wyatt. And his research interest is in wildlife as bioindicators for environmental, human, and ecosystem health, and studies on sustainable strategies in promoting ecosystem health. And Professor Wyatt is also, like Dr. Indah, is a very busy person. Next slide, please. Slide berikutnya. Yes, so he has a lot of other appointments, and this is just like a snapshot of his long CV. Basically, he's a counsel on ALAC International, a counsel on accreditation for ALAC, also a member of the accreditation commission for the, I believe it's American Zoo Association. Is it, Jeff, right? Yes, and he received a lot of grants and awards, and he's also members of a lot of boards, including the AVMA Committee on Animal Welfare. So, and probably one of the his activities is also involved in this NGO called Health in Harmony, which I believe is a lot of the slides or a lot of the topic that Professor Wyatt will share as part of his work alongside the Health in Harmony group. So without further ado, I welcome Professor Jeff Wyatt, and the screen is yours, Professor Wyatt.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fitri. Let me share the screen here. Are we sharing?
Yes.
Oh, great, great. Well, thank you, Dr. Fitri, for the really kind words and the introduction, and a special thank you for Dr. Inda for your excellent One Health presentation. It provides a great segue for my presentation, which I will be sharing with you the application of the One Health concept, especially in the face of our planetary health challenges. You know, as medical practitioners, faculty, and students, you know, be it veterinary or human medicine in our audience this evening, we all are facing a new healthcare challenges in our climate changing world. I have a story of hope, but much more than hope. A proof of concept with metrics to share with you, an ecosystem health success story, 15 years in the making, well positioned for replication globally. So you all may join us. We've protected 269,000 acres of forest, saved 3,000 of the world's last Bornean orangutans, mitigated climate change, while also reversing poverty and transforming public health, all accomplished by listening. Radical listening to local communities. It just seems too good to be true, doesn't it? We've mentioned planetary health before. Planetary health integrates human health and environmental sustainability. We as healthcare providers and teachers need to evaluate our key competencies, as Dr. Inda was suggesting, especially as ecosystems become dysfunctional and unpredictable. Let's strengthen our eco-medical climate change literacy in our teaching curricula and continuing education. We as healthcare providers, you know, be it veterinary, be it human, be it forest health, we need to be better prepared. I highly recommend all of you read this reference from The Lancet. It's the real foundation describing planetary health and how we are degrading the Earth's life support system. Warming of the planet through fossil fuel emissions, deforestation, overfishing, over-consuming resources. You know, it all may seem hopeless. And now, especially on the heels of just last month's United Nations Climate Change Conference in Glasgow, recognizing that the world's average temperature has already increased 1.1 degrees C above the pre-industrial times. We must embrace alternatives to fossil fuels. However, there is some promising news, is that we have 1/3 of the solution to mitigate climate change. It's photosynthesis. We need to keep climate critical forests standing. Deforestation releases as much carbon as the world's transportation sector, 13% of the world's greenhouse gases. Since the year 2000, in only 21 years, 10% of the world's tree cover has been removed. Better stewardship of forest, decreased deforestation, reforestation, better forest handling alone could potentially remove, get this, remove 7 billion tons of carbon dioxide annually, the equivalent of eliminating 1.5 billion cars. That's more than all of the cars in the world today, and it's all in forests. So ending deforestation is the key to buying us more time. We have a One Health success story. The One Health concept demonstrates the interconnectedness of human, animal, and environmental health, as Dr. Inda so well described. Greater than 75% of the emerging human infectious diseases involve an animal. The One Health initiative, coined by veterinarians decades ago, is becoming much more transdisciplinary, more collaborative, including physicians and epidemiologists, forest health scientists, soil scientists, as we face a pandemic now of zoonotic origin, and as we identify environmental determinants, anthropogenic, man-caused drivers of human health. Unless both people and the environment are healthy, neither can be. These 17 UN, United Nations Sustainable Goals, provide a great framework with targets by 2030, targets integrating health and sustainability, reversing poverty, addressing food insecurity, human health, animal health below water, animal health on land, gender equality, clean water and sanitation. So many of these goals are prioritized by the work I'm about to describe, our work in West Kalimantan, our first case report. And as you learn more, we've replicated globally. Now, after working more than 10 years in Indonesian Borneo, in West Kalimantan, I've learned that the best way to save this orangutan and her infant is to save this child. We at first, 15 years ago, faced tremendous challenges. A child born into poverty was twice as likely to die before the age of 5. Our wild orangutans was and still are listed by IUCN as critically endangered, losing 60% of their population since 1950. And now Borneo is experiencing one of the world's most rapid rates of deforestation. The proportion of mothers not surviving childbirth in developing countries is 14 times higher than in developed countries. So you can see this interconnection between the environment and families. Wouldn't you as a parent, a spouse, a sibling, or a son do anything to keep your family alive? Thus is born the vicious cycle of illegal logging and environmental degradation. We are physicians, veterinarians, dentists, economists, nurses, midwives, even epidemiologists, soil scientists. Now this is Kennery Webb on the left. She is the founder of Health in Harmony. She's a One Health pioneer, a Planetary Health pioneer. She's now a physician. Before becoming a physician, she visited West Kalimantan with an interest in orangutan conservation. It didn't take her long to realize that the biggest problem orangutans face is deforestation. Orangutans losing their habitat. And she also took a bit of a dive into why deforestation and learned that many of the loggers, especially the illegal loggers, had no choice. They had no choice but to cut trees. In her One Health wisdom, Kennery invited veterinarians to also lead that part of the program in West Kalimantan. And you'll see in the center of this image, Dr. Andrew Winterbourne. Both of us have visited IPB and done a seminar. And Andrew is currently a veterinarian at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. And I believe Dr. Fitri has visited him at Queen's University. And there I am, we are examining a goat. And we are working with villagers on animal health, herd health, goat health, Kennery's group on human health, and really it all ties in with deforestation and forest health, translating into orangutan success in saving orangutans. So we've all joined forces in this innovative One Health multidisciplinary way to advance ecosystem health, humans, animals, and the environment. And please know, please remember, you can all join us. We're not that far away in West Kalimantan, and we're in other sites around the world that you're welcome to join us as well as students or faculty. Now, as you can see on Borneo, we know the Malaysian north and the Indonesian south. You can see deforestation has been a problem, and that we are still experiencing this fastest rate of deforestation. That blue arrow points to Sukadana in West Kalimantan, where I started my work over 10 years ago. And you can see as we go through decades, the deforestation, greener trees, and the beige, not so much trees. And you know, you can see in 1950, it's true, it was once said that orangutans could cross the entire island of Borneo without ever touching the ground. That's not the case now. You can fast forward to 2020, 2021, and you can see where we are with the forest and the islands of forest and the isolation of all wildlife that inhabits those corridors. And some of these animals live nowhere else in the world but in Borneo. I give a lot of presentations in Canada and the United States, and depending on wherever I give my presentation, and this is the version for the United States in part, you know, sometimes you'll see conservationists point fingers and say, how could they cut those trees down? And it's a them problem, it's an us problem, we're all in this together. So you can see what's happened in the United States. This is all primary forest, and you can see that the deforestation pattern in the United States is the same as in Borneo. And it's the same as in Canada and Europe. We humans have been deforesting the environment for our own purposes. Our land use choices can really contribute to challenges for our health, environmental health, and as we've seen more tragically as planetary health has become more of an issue. Zooming in, you can see where I work in Gunung Palung National Park. It's in Sukadana in West Kalimantan, right there on the coast. You can see that the green, of course, still, those are trees through 2017. And you can see where orangutans, we selected orangutans as our flagship species. They're iconic. Now, we all know that the frogs and the reptiles and the birds and the other small mammals and the invertebrates, they're all equally as important as orangutans, honestly. But when you are appealing to the public and to sway public opinion on understanding this One Health concept and how we're all interconnected, sometimes you do have to select a flagship species. Again, the green are trees, and when we're talking about orangutans, you can see that the yellow dots are where orangutans live, and it's not surprising we don't find orangutans living in anywhere where we don't have trees. And that brings us to the mantra, no tree, no me. Trees need orangutans, and orangutans need trees. The orangutans actually reforest the forest by spreading seed pods through their feces, and they are important architects of the forest. So it's an equal need. Gunung Palung National Park is an incredibly biodiverse habitat, over 3,000 orangutans in the buffer zone as well, and 269,000 acres. And as we look at the whole world, we see that rainforest, like in Gunung Palung National Park, they only cover 2% of the surface of the earth, yet they contain 50% of the world's terrestrial species. And around Gunung Palung National Park, we have 60,000 villagers living around the park, surviving, coexisting for the most part with the park, with some desperate exceptions. This is the vicious cycle. Illegal logging, short-term desperate choices in tenuous times, illegal logging to pay for family care, feeding your family, housing, education, and especially healthcare, especially emergency healthcare. So we went to West Kalimantan over 10 years ago, and curious how we could learn more about the drivers of deforestation and how we as a global community could help ourselves. So we practice what we call radical listening. Now, radical listening is where you let go of your own control of a conversation. You sit on your hands and you listen. And it's not easy to do. And I encourage all of you to try it in every aspect of your life, not just in science. Go home and try to radically listen to your friends and family and understand what motivates them. And don't be judgmental. So when we went to West Kalimantan around Gunung Kulung National Park, we asked one question with our 400 hours of listening to the villagers. One question: we are all guardians of a precious rainforest that is valuable to the whole world. You are all guardians of that rainforest. What would you need as a thank you from the world community so that you could protect the forest? You know, and we were surprised that we kept hearing two things all around the forest, all around the villages. We heard two things. Well, first, we did radical listening, not only to the villagers regarding their use of the forest, but also to small scale farmers, to farmers groups. We as veterinarians paralleled the radical listening with human health, with veterinary health, animal health. But what we did learn through the radical listening is that people living near the forest revere it. They love the forest. They know that if the forest is damaged, that the water quality suffers. Diarrheal disease in the villagers increases. More mosquito-borne disease as you are at the interface, especially of, for example, Plasmodium knowlesi that the monkeys carry that you normally wouldn't see, that are actually a diurnal biting mosquito and pose many challenges to loggers as they go deeper in the forest. They revere the forest. And most importantly, we learned that 100% of the loggers, they wanted to stop. They wanted to stop deforestation. It's dangerous. They go for weeks into the forest. And we learned that, first of all, if they had access to healthcare, affordable healthcare for their families, that would be one important component to stop their illegal logging. Because one big driver of logging is revenue generated to pay for healthcare for their families. And in parts of Sukadana and the regions around Gunung Pulung National Park, it could take days to get to a hospital. And can you imagine a life-threatening disorder? Pending birth, a C-section is required, which is one of our biggest challenges in the tropics, taking days to get to a hospital. So we recognize that access to affordable healthcare with them is a priority by listening. We also learned that if they had alternative livelihoods, sustainable livelihoods, they could stop illegal logging. They could stop logging. They wanted a way to generate revenue to meet their family needs, an alternative to logging. So what did we do? Well, we first opened up a small clinic. This is our newer hospital. Again, the One Health interconnection. We opened up a small hospital clinic in a house, and we also started training young Indonesian physicians. The small clinic and this brand new hospital is operated by Indonesian physicians. We mentor, we have physicians from Europe, from North America, visiting these clinics, this one hospital especially, and we mentor these young Indonesian physicians. It's like a really high-powered residency training program. And these physicians, these young physicians, they go on, when they leave our hospital in Sukadana, they go on to Indonesia and other hospitals, and they become some of the leading physicians around the country. So it's a wonderful capacity building experience, and it's not just capacity building for the Indonesian physicians. In this now, it's a 20-bed hospital. We have opportunities for surgeries. We see 10,000 patients a year, but it's a win-win experience for both the physicians in Indonesia and the physicians that visit. We have sent 7 physicians from the University of Rochester School of Medicine and Dentistry Yale University and Stanford are also sending physicians. I'm looking for veterinarians to join us and veterinary students, as Dr. Fitria knows. We, this pictured here is our first physician, Dr. Nick, and in the middle, Dr. Valerie. And then we had our faculty. These are faculty, a department head and his wife who visited Sukadana to mentor and to learn. These physicians from the United States, from the University of Rochester, this has changed the way they practice medicine. They don't see medicine the same way. They see this holistic approach. They work through problem solving, and they have become much better physicians themselves. I wish they were here to share with you their success stories and the impact this has had on their practice. We are changing the way we practice medicine in the United States, in great part because of these experiences in Sukadana. So we introduced a new integrated healthcare model. And this model is innovative, and it was created by the community. We didn't come in with any ideas. And this model, the community did not want to give away healthcare. And we have a sister nonprofit, an NGO called ASRI, Alam Sehat Lestari. And that NGO manages this program as much as the Health and Harmony NGO that I work through in Portland, Oregon. So ASRI and the community determined, let's not give away healthcare. And the community didn't want that either. They wanted everyone to respect the healthcare opportunities and that it's affordable. And here's how it works. We have an incentive, first of all, for communities not to log. If you come from one of those 60,000 families around the park that in a village that does not log, you get a 70% discount on your hospital costs. A 70% discount if you come from villages that don't log. We have forest guardians. It's quite obvious when you're in a village around the national park if logging is happening. And there's the peer pressure actually in these communities has been stunningly impactful. Now, we don't hold healthcare hostage. Please know that. We don't hold healthcare hostage. We offer an opportunity to accept non-cash payments. Even if you come from a logging village, we don't turn anyone away. So we accept non-cash payments. We accept seedlings. We also have a green credit system where families can work in our nurseries, growing indigenous trees, native trees, to then distribute in our buffer zones, and also to selectively harvest and selectively log. We're not against logging. We are against illegal logging that actually harms the environment. So these non-cash payments were the key to making healthcare affordable and making it accessible, was opening up our clinic. We also accept manure. We accept goat manure. Could you imagine going to a Bogor City or a Jakarta City hospital with a bag of manure to pay for your healthcare? I don't think so. I wish we could do that in the United States. And these are some of our women in our programs that are raising goats, and they raise the goats for manure as well as meat production, and the manure is then turned into compost. But that's a nice segue actually to the alternative sustainable livelihoods. I'm not a farmer. The listening was so important. So the loggers that we interviewed around the forest, they had heard that in the island of Java, not so far away, that there were farmers there that were farming in lands that had previously been slashed and burned, and they've been farming successfully without using expensive chemicals. And this is organic farming. I'm not an organic farmer, but somewhere around the world, and nice that it was so close to Borneo, that the solution is nearby. And so we brought farmers from Java to train us in organic farming, using compost to successfully farm what were previously slash and burn areas on the forest margin. And as you know, when we start growing crops in the slash and burn areas, we rapidly eliminate the nutrients, and that soil is not usable for decades to come, unless you can nourish it, fertilize it through organic farming and compost. Well, the veterinary side of things, and I know there's so many veterinarians on this Zoom meeting. We use goats and cattle because that's what the farmers wanted. We asked them, not chickens, not necessarily fish, goats and cattle, and as meat sources, as well as sources for feces. This is small scale production. You know, it's a bit of a trade-off because we know that, you know, agriculture can be a contributor to climate change. This is small scale production that is saving the forest. And we had a permission from the municipal veterinarian near Sukadana. He blessed us. We are not licensed to practice veterinary medicine in West Kalimantan. And the physicians that visit Sukadana are not either. We are mentoring. And these are two veterinary extenders. These are not veterinarians that we have been training to promote goat and cattle health. That's Andrew Winterborn with Jilly. Jilly actually came from an ex-logging family. He went out on logging expeditions, and now he is an expert in organic farming as well as in determining goat herd health and cattle herd health. My counterpart for goat herd health, this is Ibu Setiawati. Ibu Setiawati is a champion in the community, trusted relationships with everyone, and she has been solely promoting goat herd health. Here I'm training Ibu Setiawati for body condition scoring of goats. And as you probably all know, you can score body condition of goats, applying a number if they're emaciated to overconditioned. And so we wanted metrics to drive our assessment of herd health as we changed a few of the practices with the community that were compromising their health as well. When we first did our radical listening for the animal health side, the top complaint, and this is where listening is so important, the top complaint, and imagine if, you know, a goat owner came into your hospital, your veterinary hospital practice, and you asked them what's wrong with your goats or your goat herd. The number one complaint was that they were lazy, that the goats are lazy. And here's why. As we were, you know, reviewing the herds, we saw that many of them had overgrown hooves and that many of them were anemic. And of course, we didn't go into our conversations pretending like we knew anything. We were listening. And as we learned these challenges, we trained on hoof trimming. Such an easy thing to train on if you have the tools and the training and the trust of the owners of the goats. I mean, I think one of the first goats that I was hoof trimming with Ibu Setiawati, these were mostly widows that own the goats. It's another program I'll mention in a few seconds. The first goat I was trimming, the goat collapsed. The goat fell to the ground, looked like it was dead. I was mortified. And you can imagine the owner of the goat was not happy. It turns out that goat had a disorder that you may have learned about if you are veterinarians or veterinary students. It's a fainting goat syndrome. Goats, when they are stressed, will pass out and they will become unconscious. So we recovered the goat. It was the only incident of a fainting goat I've ever seen. And we went on to train on hoof trimming. This is Ibu Setiawati deworming. We did some selective deworming. You may have heard of refugia deworming. That's where you don't deworm the entire herd. You let the goats coexist with the worms. It's called refugia deworming because there's a refuge of worms in the herd. And as long as you are only deworming 30% or less of the herd, the rest of the worms in the goats never see the ivermectin or the fenbendazole, and you don't see resistance. You've probably seen drug resistance in goats, and it's globally a big challenge. And so we are not taking blood samples on these goats to see if they're anemic. And you all know that some of the worms, especially Haemonchus, can cause anemia, but you can use this FAMACHA scorecard, and you can train veterinary extenders or veterinarians to identify a goat that is dangerously anemic. And if they are dangerously anemic, then you start deworming them. We don't deworm all of the goats. So with these very simple strategies, and also addressing some other findings with access to fresh water at all times. The goat owners were adding a bit too much salt to water, trying to add minerals to the water, and it was inconsistent. And so we worked on a program to have access to free fresh water all the time, as well as food sources, which is all cut and carry browse. There's no grain at all. And we worked on all of these programs and training. And here's the beauty in the One Health concept. These are two of our physicians that joined us from the University of Rochester. They're with us when we veterinarians are working with the goats. And they shared with us and learned with us goat herd health, the challenges of keeping goats healthy in a community that also is facing their own human health conditions related to deforestation. A true One Health concept, initiative, in action. So after all of these changes, we have now access to healthcare for humans, people. It's affordable. We have alternatives. We have sustainable livelihoods now that don't involve illegal logging. We have goats and cattle that are producing manure, that are also a source of meat. And especially, we've been tracking populations of our goats. And as you probably know, when they're born, half the goats are males, half the goats are females. And so as the males age, they become amazing meat sources for various celebrations and holidays. And we keep the female goats for making more goats. We're not using them for dairy. It's all for raising more goats to expand our small scale goat herding, to generate revenue for especially these disadvantaged members of the community, mostly the widows in our Goats for Widows program, and the farmers groups with cattle. So did all of this work, did all of this radical listening and the changes made by the community work? Well, I wouldn't be here necessarily today if they didn't work. They did. Resounding yes. It has been amazing what we have accomplished over a short 3 to 5 to 10 years as we've been tracking our metrics. We have a hospital that's high functioning. We have 10,000 patients a year that come through this beautiful new hospital. The Indonesian physicians are running the show. It's multidisciplinary. We brought students from a business school from Ohio State to come and help us learn more about managing a hospital efficiently, especially when you're accepting non-cash payments. So we've really accomplished a lot with the One Health concept, with having this fantastic hospital. And what other metrics do we have to share? What other metrics? Well, for human illness, we have seen a decrease, and these are 5-year metrics, in some of the more common problems that you'd see in a community around a forest, especially a forest that is degraded. We saw fever was a measurement of health. Diarrhea, especially when you're having questionable sources of high quality water, and cough. So our baseline shows numbers of prevalence of these illnesses in the communities around the forest. After we had access to healthcare and more training and a decrease in deforestation, we saw a decrease in fever, significant, 33% or so. We saw a 50% decrease in diarrhea, really excellent, improved higher quality water and how to manage and handle water. And then we also saw an over 50% decrease in cough. And this is cough of a 3-week duration, which is oftentimes considered tuberculosis. And so with these stunning decreases in human illness, we went on looking at further metrics. Now, if you just look at one demographic metric in the human population, it's infant mortality. If you can change, improve, decrease infant mortality, all of the other health metrics in a human community, a population, they go along with it. So our baseline measurement showed our infant deaths per 1,000 households around the forest. And with our changes, especially having midwives play a leadership role in our programming, look at that. It's a stunning 83% decrease in infant mortality. Can you imagine, as a mother or a father or a sibling, imagining that decrease? And oftentimes people wonder, well, if you decrease infant mortality, aren't we going to have a population explosion? Not so. All around the world, as we can decrease infant mortality, we see that we have a decreased number of births per mother. And those go hand in hand, promoting a much healthier and a happier community, a happier family. Now, one may wonder, is this really a thing? What was happening in the rest of Indonesia? You know, maybe all of Indonesia had a decrease in infant deaths per 1,000 households. So you can see there's our baseline, there's our 10-year metric around the forests. Well, it's not coincidental. I think it's correlated, where we have this decrease in infant mortality around our forests. It's different than what was going on in the rest of Indonesia. Another metric is children dying under the age of 5, and it's a similar pattern. Amazing, down 90%. And again, all of these health metrics, they parallel each other as you decrease infant mortality. But what about the rest of Indonesia? Again, the same question. Not so much. It's still higher. I'm convinced that our radical listening and our changing in the community programming is correlated, and I think causal, decreasing infant mortality and children's death under 5. Well, I know many of us are veterinarians in the audience, and what about the animals? Did we make a difference there? And we did a longitudinal health assessment and published that in a peer-reviewed journal. And I was surprised at just over 3 years what we learned. And that first year was mostly just really feasible, easy husbandry changes. We weren't even deworming animals for that first year. We improved access to food, cut and carry browse, and access to water, which improved lactation and opportunities to nurse. And you can see that coconut hanging over the water source. That coconut, where the widows designed a way where the goats by choice could add salt to their diet. So it's like a salt shaker. There are holes in the bottom of that coconut. It's full of salt. And so the goat can bang its head against that shell and add salt to taste. So we had some amazing metrics also that show us that we improved goat health. And as we wrap up some of the science here, we were measuring body condition scoring, like I was showing with Ibu Setiawati, which helps you determine if you are in an ideal body condition for slaughter, for milk production, for lactation. If you're emaciated, again, not good for meat production or for raising baby goats. And if you're anemic, related to parasites or even malnutrition. So you see baseline data here. And after just 3 years of changing our husbandry practices, being trained by Ibu Setiawati and Jilly, we saw amazing increases in health. Body condition increase, making these goats much more marketable and more interesting for consumption for meat and making babies. The body condition scores dropped incredibly. Long gone were the emaciated goats, and the anemia score decreased to a point where it's where we want it to be. It's where only about 1/3 of the goats are anemic, requiring treatment in the herd. And so we've eliminated the risk of goat dewormer resistance, and we have improved goat health. More importantly to me is that we have empowered especially disadvantaged members of the community. Our Goats for Widows program has made a difference a world of difference for those members of the community, as well as some of our farmers groups. We have kitchen gardens using compost, and mostly we have these goats that the widows see as their children. These are their families. They are very important to the goats and the people. And they also make manure now. And so as an entrepreneur, they're raising goats for manure production, selling them to the cattle ranchers, as well as back to the government. We have a huge compost production program now. So the widows, they taught me a lot, and I recognized that they made life choice changes. I would have never guessed, but we've reversed poverty. Not only can they afford health care as well as other members of their families, look at that. They can put a metal roof on their house. That's a big deal in such a wet environment. Put a metal roof on the house, patch up the house. And this is what I find really amazing, is that we also now have very modern goat houses. This is where the goats live. It has a metal roof too, with a fancy thatch. So happy goats, happy widows, happy families. What about the forest? Well, we had this amazing decrease in logging households, an 88% decrease through 2017. Well, now we're almost 95% decrease for some other measures and efforts I will describe. Illegal logging is a thing of the past. And we have more metrics to show you as we finish the presentation. These metrics show what happened to the forest. Now, OSRI, as you remember, is Alam Sehat Lestari, our sister NGO, and that's our hospital. When we started this program in 2007, sadly, 40% of the primary forest was already gone from Gunung Pulung National Park. But look what happened with that red line. The red line shows the forests that are logged. And the logging decreased. It took a while, but it decreased significantly. And look at the blue line, that's the reforestation. Though it's reforestation, primarily seedlings that were used to pay for healthcare by the patients in our hospital all around Gunung Pulung National Park, through the hospital and our ambulatory care facility. This reduction in forest loss, and this gain, it equates to a cumulative 590 million kilograms of above ground averted carbon loss. So this is where Planetary Health comes into play. This is where we need to become more literate about the challenges of planetary health. This is saving carbon, a carbon sink in a rainforest. And that amount of carbon is valued in US dollars at over $65 million. Here's an example that helped the animals. It's a reforestation of a corridor. Remember that early slide that showed that habitat is being fragmented? Just in 2012, the patients, seedlings, were planting in a forest corridor that orangutans and other animals would never cross. In 4 short years, look at that, we have trees. We have trees that are connecting these fragmented forests. And the big question is, does it matter? Are animals using it? So we set up traps. Camera traps that didn't injure the animals. And so when an animal triggered the camera, we got photographs of small mammals, of civets, of long-tailed macaques, cynomolgus macaques, birds. Where are the orangutans? We were counting orangutan nests, because they make nests every night in the forest. And as we were looking at night too, look carefully, you could see that eye flash. That's an ocelot. That is a rare and endangered cat that is crossing the corridor. Are you ready though? Where are the orangutans? Are you ready? Are you ready for the best selfie? The best selfie ever? Look at that, the orangutans have come back. This is a young male orangutan that has triggered our camera trap, has found his way through that corridor. And as you know, the natural history of orangutans, these young males have to go to other forests to raise families with other orangutans. They leave their family. And for genetic diversity and for orangutan health, that is critical. So now no longer are all these fragmented habitats compromising genetic diversity in orangutans and all the other animals. So what are all these other career pathways? Much more than 52% now are small scale farming. We have beekeeping, these amazing tropical bees I've never worked with before. Aquaculture, we are fish rearing. And we, of course, are selling compost. And the bottom line message in all of this is that these illegal loggers, they were totally right when they told us that with healthcare and training in organic farming, they could stop logging. They were right. And that just took 10 short years to see all of these amazing metrics. So you have to be invested in the long run and be committed and continue supporting the program. One final project that we've been working with, if you don't own land, you can't farm. And so we started a chainsaw buyback program where we buy chainsaws. We buy the chainsaws for about half a year's revenue that you generate from logging. We give a small business loan. Indeed, it's just a loan. They have to pay back. Mostly it's the women and the families. We train in business management. Sorry, guys. But the women seem to run the businesses. And thank goodness we have some amazing businesses that are successful around the forest. My favorite one is this cafe called Steel Hot. If you're aware of chainsaws and companies that make chainsaws, one of them is called Steel, S-T-I-H-L. And so they decided to name their cafe Steel Hot, and just huge success stories. So, you know, in summary here, with our community-led solutions, we've been disruptive. We, the communities, we OSRI, we Health and Harmony, we've changed the status quo. We've transformed over 1,000 logging families' lives. We've transformed healthcare. Our community-led solutions have now provided affordable, high-quality healthcare to these 60,000 plus more villages now as we expand our ambulatory care practice. And from a veterinarian, a conservation biologist, I'm just so happy that we've saved 3,000 of the world's last Bornean orangutans. Can you believe that? 3,000. That's about 10% of the population, and all of the other animals that require the forest to survive. But why stop here? Now we have this proof of concept. And this is where, if radical listening works and listening to communities for their solutions can make change happen, let's replicate. Let's make this open source, open access. Let's replicate. So we started, as you can see, in Sukadana. We moved into Bukit Baka, Bukit Raya, more closer to central Kalimantan, wanting to have more of a spoke and wheel program where we would still use the Sukadana Hospital, but we would send healthcare providers to Bukit Baka, Bukit Raya Forest, where it's a totally different community. These are indigenous communities. And we know that for indigenous communities around the world, they protect the land as well. They revere the land, and their land contains 50% of the world's remaining rainforest, and 80% of these are the world's healthiest ecosystems. We have a global incentive and a local incentive to save these. So our visit to Bukit Baka, Bukit Raya, my first visit, and only so far since COVID hit, involved radical listening to these villagers, the Dayak community. They're river people. They live off the river and the forest. And we just listened to them as far as their relationship with the forest. No judgment, right? So we've learned that, yes, they are eating macaques. They also are eating bats from a bushmeat experience, and went out on logging expeditions. And yes, they're eating orangutans. No judgment, no judgment, just listening and learning. And we asked them about the world, thanking them. And they're not interested in goats as an alternative protein source. They want pigs. And I think it's because of their centuries of a relationship with the forest pig. So they're interested in veterinary management of pigs, having healthier pigs, and we need help. We need help from veterinary schools in Indonesia to advance this program. I can't do it. So I'm pleading with you in Indonesia, especially the veterinarians, please help us advance this program. And they also wanted midwives. Midwives are key to success for happy families, as we've learned. And these midwives are doing a lot more than midwifery. And now we have more of a hospital program launching in Bukit Baka, Bukit Raya. And we are in Madagascar, in Manumbu. It's another biodiversity hotspot, the same thing, the interface of people and wildlife. These villages are starving, and 80% of the animals that live in Madagascar only live there. They're eating bats, they're eating lemurs, and again, it's tragic, they don't have choices. So we have started a healthcare program there, alternative livelihoods. I'll be going there next month if the airports stay open, where we'll be doing some of what Dr. Inda described, some more advanced scientific investigations with genomics and metagenomics, and taking samples from bats, from lemurs, and from people at the interface of villagers and the forest. Again, looking at maybe the source of the next pandemic, being prepared and surveying, and again, being proactive rather than reactive. Finally, we've moved to South America and Brazil. The Shingu River is another project that we're working with through Health in Harmony, engaging local communities and partnerships. We actually have a hospital now on a boat that goes from village to village, and it's really asking the same questions, and we're generally getting the same answers about saving the forest and access to human health, the interconnection of human health and animal health. And you don't have to go far away from Rochester to do radical listening and be impactful. And this next to last slide, we are working with our communities that are subsistence refugee anglers. And it's not just refugees that are fishing in the Great Lakes. The Great Lakes where I live have 20% of the world's freshwater. I see our lakes and rivers as the Indonesian forests. I also see this lake sturgeon, which is a very special fish, as our orangutan. And if we can save the fish, save the sturgeon, we can have a healthier river. And we're working with our refugee anglers, our subsistence anglers, again, about eating fish, eating sturgeon, and keeping them healthy too, and listening to them as far as their life choices. So, you know, in closing, I just have to say we are all connected. We're medical practitioners, veterinary, human. We will be leading responses to climate-caused shifting patterns of animal, human, and environmental health. This is ecosystem health. We all need to be better prepared as healthcare providers. And remember in closing, a multidisciplinary collaborative approach. Remember listening to all communities for solutions. And remember every day that we are all connected. Thank you very much for sharing this evening with me.
Thank you so much, Professor Wyatt, for that very eye-opening presentation. And I think it really, the flow from Dr. Inda's talk is really, it's a really good flow from hearing about the One Health concept and how it moves into a strategy. And then your presentation give an actual example on how to implement that approach. And it actually goes beyond just from the medical standpoint of looking at emerging infectious diseases per se, but it's actually looking at how to improve the community. So allow me to very briefly summarize in bahasa Indonesia. Jadi Bapak dan Ibu sekalian serta para mahasiswa, tadi yang disampaikan oleh Profesor Wyatt lebih kepada mengantarkan apa yang sudah dijelaskan oleh Dr. Indah, kemudian contoh implementasinya bagaimana bahwa pendekatan One Health-nya ini sifatnya itu sangat holistik, ya, bagaimana kemudian menjawab permasalahannya dari core. Tadi di sini kita lihat bahwa permasalahan disebutkan juga oleh Dr. Indah bahwa permasalahan emerging infectious diseases itu muncul karena juga perubahan di klimat dan lain-lain. Maka dari Profesor Wyatt tadi menjelaskan bahwa salah satu penyebabnya adalah deforestasi, gitu ya. Bagaimana hutan yang dirusak ini menjadi sumber permasalahan tersebut, dan bagaimana mencoba mengatasi itu dengan pendekatan yang multidisiplin bisa membantu untuk berkontribusi mengatasi kemungkinan-kemungkinan ke arah emerging infectious disease nanti ujungnya, begitu ya. Jadi bagaimana tadi pendekatannya adalah kepada masyarakatnya, begitu, bahwa ternyata permasalahan yang dari beliau lihat di beberapa lokasi tadi berdasarkan metode radical listening tadi, mendengarkan apa yang menjadi permasalahan menurut sudut pandang orang-orang yang berada di lokasi tersebut dan berkontribusi dalam perusakan hutan, mereka memerlukan healthcare dan mereka memerlukan mata pencarian alternatif. Jadi kemudian dengan mata pencarian alternatif itu dicoba diupayakan, dan juga bagaimana healthcare dibuat affordable, ya, bagaimana akses terhadap perawatan medis itu menjadi accessible, kemudian otomatis jadi turut mempengaruhi kondisi lingkungan di sekitarnya yang harapannya juga bisa berkontribusi terhadap mengatasi kemungkinan permasalahan permasalahan kesehatan seperti emerging infectious disease dan lain sebagainya ke depannya. Jadi di sini bisa dilihat bahwa pendekatannya benar-benar harus multidisiplin, karena yang diatasi adalah masyarakatnya, kesehatannya, kesehatan hewannya, kondisi lingkungannya, bagaimana farming di situ berpengaruh, bagaimana menanam pohon kembali. Jadi benar-benar pendekatan yang sifatnya holistic. So thank you so much, Professor Wyatt, for that very wonderful talk, and also again, Dr. Indah, for very both of you give a very interesting and very important insight towards One Health and how the concept goes into approach and how it's going to be implemented. So we already have some questions. There's actually quite a lot of questions, and I would like to apologize for the audience if we go a little bit further than 9 o'clock here, because it's already 9:05. So, but we will try to be as efficient as possible. So we have the first question would actually goes to both of you, Dr. Indah as well as Professor Wyatt, is from Dr. Heru Stianto. He said it was a great presentation, and the question is, the recent pandemic has reminded us all of the deep connections between health and the environment. Adopting a One Health approach is critical, not only to prevent outbreaks in zoonotic diseases, but also other urgent environmental issues, including food safety and AMR, and antimicrobial resistance. So the question is, what is the One Health philosophy towards medical or health and environmental care? So perhaps Dr. Indah would like to comment on this first, and then Dr. Wyatt would give your opinion after that. Please go ahead, Dr. Indah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fitria, and thank you so much to the person asking the question. Okay, so I think to answer it in a simplistic way, I think the philosophy is basically, it goes back to the three elements, and basically as emphasized as well by Professor Wyatt just now, so the interconnectedness between the three elements. So you cannot basically leave out any of the domains, for example, when you're trying to tackle any of the One Health issues. So you have to consider every time when you're faced with AMR, for example, how does it weigh in? Affect the animal? Does it affect the environment? So I think we would always have to put them together in the three overlapping circles, I would say. Yeah, that's from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Indah. And I think just to add on to that it has to be personal. Humans respond when it's personal. And if it's a faraway concept somewhere else, it's not relevant to them. And I think that this COVID pandemic has really, sadly, drilled home that point that we're all at risk, especially as we identify contributors, determinants of our own health. And that's this COVID's a zoonotic agent. And so I think to answer the question, how it applies to medicine and our application, we need to always now remember to look at environmental contributors, environmental determinants, our own personal lifestyle choices to our own health and our community health. So it's looking across all three areas, human health, animal health, environment, as it dictates how we prescribe medical care, both prevent, be proactive, and treat.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wyatt and Dr. Indah, for that answer. And I hope that suffices Dr. Heru's question. So I would like to move on to the next question by Ms. Amalina. So the question is for Professor Wyatt. She would like to have your opinion about the new normal habit. Would you think that this new normal habits during the pandemic, like the use of disposable or single-use mask, and also using the online shopping that uses more plastics for packaging, would make climate change worse? What do you think of that, Dr. Wyatt?
Absolutely. We need to be careful about the consequences of our actions, especially as we're reacting to a pandemic like COVID. We have to be creative, and we need to share feasible ways that we can minimize disposables and we can recycle. And just one really quick example. So I work in a research facility. We have 100,000 animals. We also have a hospital there. We're now recycling all of our exam gloves. And we're using many more exam gloves, and we're using much more PPE, face masks, than we ever used before. And we're working with a program that recycles them, and we've diverted 20,000 pounds of exam gloves and face masks away from landfill. And it's not budget neutral. So you need to have an institutional commitment to reverse, especially environmental degradation, because we do run the risk, as the question poses, with these changes in our program practices related to COVID. So we need to be really creative and innovative with the use of PPE and the recycling it, as well as all plastics. Look at where it lands in the landfill and look at alternatives. But we need to be creative, and we need to invest. It's not free.
Yeah. So again, problems is always there, right, Professor Wyatt? And again, it also shows the need for, again, a multidisciplinary approach, right? Because it's not just a medical issue, right? It's an environmental issue. So a lot of people have to contribute on this. So thank you so much, Dr. Wyatt, for that answer. And the next question is from Dr. Denny. The question would be for both speakers, and Dr. Denny stated here, it's very easy to discuss and state about One Health, but it's a bit more difficult to implement this concept, right? So how could the One Health be applied or implemented in a practical practices in the field? So probably I'll start with Dr. Indah.
Yeah, it's a very good question, because I mean, we do actually face it in our daily work at times. So I mean, I think how could you would want to apply it? You could actually start by just teaming up with somebody who you are comfortable with in terms of from another field, and then you're used to talking to them, discussing to them about a particular issue, and then that can actually then attract connections, you know. So when you have those connections, it's much easier to get to the right person, because otherwise it will be pretty much like barriers, borders, or silos, and then that actually brings all the challenges in working in making One Health work. And so I think connection is key in trying to implement One Health and to make it work, to make it practical. Yeah, that's one of the tips I would say. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Indah. So you would suggest start interconnecting and start from your surroundings, right? That would be your suggestion. Okay, thank you. And how about Dr. Wyatt? Do you have any comment on this?
I sure do. And, you know, I work with students everywhere, high school, college, veterinary, medical. My generation really blew it. This younger generation, they are demanding more sustainable solutions. They're demanding sustainability. And I believe that this next generation will manage where we have failed, but where we can succeed. Someone in my generation, especially faculty, be it in high school, colleges, is to become more literate. We need to all become more literate about climate change, what causes it, what can prevent it, how can you intervene, more literate about One Health and working together. We need examples of success stories. We can't just talk about philosophy. We need tangible, relevant, translational examples where it makes sense to an individual, where it might even impact their own personal life. More literate about planetary health. So where we, I think, can start is to, as Dr. Indo was saying, add some of these concepts into our curricula. You can't change curricula in a medical school, a vet school. You need to add to it. And so wherever we can plug in planetary health, One Health messages with tangible, relevant examples, we need to start with our youth and training our youth and becoming more aware of opportunities with our younger generation. And it's up to us, the faculty, to make that happen and to satisfy this need that our younger generation is demanding for being more aware of solutions for planetary health challenges.
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Wyatt. And I see here that Dr. Denny raised his hand. So please, Dr. Denny, if you have further comment on this question, Dr. Denny. I believe Dr. Denny. Yes, Dr. Denny, do you have any further comment on Professor Wyatt's and Dr. Indah's answer? Silakan, Pak Dr. Denny, jika ada yang ingin ditambahkan. Tadi raise hand, Dok.
Hi. Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Okay.
Silakan,
Thank
Dok.
you very much for your answers. Great. So as I work at the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, I think it is also, what do you think about the concept should be delivered to the students in the veterinary or medical students? Is it important for the concept first, and then maybe they can practice how to discuss with other other disciplines than they are accustomed to discuss with others, not only from the veterinary students or veterinarians. What do you think about it? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Denny. So yeah, Dr. Indah and Dr. Wyatt, what do you think about like how do we approach students? Yeah, that's how important. How do we change in training the students? So do you have any comment on that, Dr. Wyatt or Dr. Indah, please?
Dr. Indah first.
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Dr. Indah.
Yeah, you could start with an introduction in certain relevant or courses. So for example, veterinary public health, for example, or public health for human medicine. And then it can then follow by problem-based learning or case-based study or outdoor activities where you have clubs, and then you can actually implement or involved students from various faculties, schools, and then they can come together. And then by doing that, you are able to see that they can just, the younger generations are very energetic, very fun, outgoing individuals. So most of the time, they are happy to see people from outside of their faculties or schools, So, I mean, that's for a start. I think usually we see a good sort of like positive outcomes from those kind of events, and then they will continue on their own once they graduate. Yeah.
And thank you. I think it's back to, again, looking critically at our key competencies. We need to recognize where we have a program that is weak in these concepts, and then plug them in where we see opportunities. We need to develop learning objectives in our curricula as it relates to One Health and planetary health. And this could cross many disciplines. And it's really our veterinarians and our physicians, they touch the lives of many people, not just, scientists or other healthcare providers. So what the physicians are doing in our medical school is that they are learning the dialogue, they are learning the key concepts, and they are sharing this kind of information with their patients. How to have a conversation with your patients, the children, the families of children, but veterinarians doing exactly the same thing. How can a veterinarian have a conversation with a pet owner, with livestock owner, about environmental degradation and what they can do in their own lives without preaching, So you have to be careful and sensitive, and those soft skills that Dr. Indah was describing, we need our students to be better prepared to have those conversations and then demonstrate by example. So it's key competencies and learning objectives to enhance our curricula.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent comment, Dr. Indah and Dr. Wyatt. So thank you so much, Dr. Denny, for that question, for raising that issue. Ya, para mahasiswa di sini tadi mendengarkan ya betapa pentingnya juga soft skill dan komunikasi begitu ya. Bagaimana itu menjadi salah satu kunci ya untuk kemudian bisa membuat perubahan besar di konsep ini, di konsep One Health menjadi suatu approach. So thank you so much, Dr. Denny and also Dr. Wyatt and Dr. Indah. So we probably only have time for these last two questions. I have one question for Dr. Indah is from Izatul Shahira. She's asking, is there any difference you think in terms of approach between approaching an EID, an emerging infectious disease, and a re-emerging disease? Do you think there's a different approach
in terms of
anticipating
okay.
diseases? Yes.
Yeah, so that's a very good question, challenging as well. All right, so emerging and re-emerging diseases. So with re-emerging diseases, there was historically it used to happen. So possibly you would be able to gauge clues, for example, in terms of the potential for the particular disease to happen in the same location or in the same state or in the same country, because it used to be reported, it used to happen previously. But for emerging diseases, I would say it goes back to the difference would be like, because it's something that you've never sort of like expected, you might anticipate it to happen, but because it can be something that is new, that is just discovered, like COVID-19, SARS, so it gives you like a shock, like a surprise. So so that is why it's important to run through all the surveillance, for example, as what Dr. White is also doing in his project that he described that he's going to be doing. So prospectively, that would help, continuous active or passive surveillance in both of the human, especially, and the animal population. That would help a lot in terms of trying to detect, especially emerging diseases. With re-emerging, you would have a history of it, and that would be able to feed in into certain, how you would assess this particular disease or determinants. Would it increase the risk or chances of it happening, be it because of the weather, because of the change in landscape, because of any other changes in that. So probably that would be the differences in approach. Probably Prof. Wyatt will be able to elaborate more on that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Indah. So there are some similarities between those, so like conceptually would be similar, but there would be some perks in looking at the re-emerging, right, because of the previous patterns and everything, right? So yeah, so that's I think that was a really good answer, and I hope that's suffice the question from Izatul. And just one more question, so I apologize if there's any more question here, but this is one last question addressed to Dr. Jeff Wyatt. The question from Dr. Suresh Potani. His question is, in the orangutans that you mentioned in the location there in Borneo, are these orangutans microbiologically monitored or screened for pathogens? If there's any particular schedule for screening them to know, he mentioned here, because some are eating these animals as well. So any reports of illness in these animals? So that would be his question. If you have any comments on that, on the orangutans in the location that you work there.
Yeah, excellent question. So it is about monitoring what we're accomplishing with orangutan health as well. These are wild orangutans. They're very elusive. We can examine their feces. We can do gut microbiome studies, but we mostly can see just from their health about reproduction and survival, mortality of offspring, and also habitat expansion and using that habitat. We can sample them pretty intensely if we have them where they are taken from the forest for the pet trade, let's say, but we don't really get our hands on the orangutans to do anything more than non-invasive sampling. There are occasions, there's one group that is studying the orangutans and asking the same questions about what diseases they may share or may contract with this climate change crisis that we're facing. But our best metric of orangutan health is a happy, thriving population and looking at easy samples like feces and urine. Now, when I go to Madagascar next month, we are going to be tranquilizing many lemurs and bats and doing biodiversity surveys. So we are moving that direction to get baseline health information, but especially viral genomics, parasitology, and potential pathogens shared across communities, including people. So yes, a good question, various ways to monitor orangutan health.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Wyatt. So yeah, Dr. Suresh, thank you for pointing that out. So it's really then important to monitor them in, I guess, in a more manner, in non-invasive manner, right? Because we don't want to interfere further with the population there in the conservation area. So excellent question and excellent answer. So I guess due to time constraint, unfortunately, you won't be able to entertain more questions. So I would like to express my thanks to Dr. Indah and Dr. Jeff Wyatt for your both excellent presentations, very insightful presentation, and also for participants for asking the questions and raising important issues to be discussed during the Q&A discussion session. So that was an excellent discussion. So thank you so much. And just to maybe wrap up this discussion before I hand it back to Diaz as the MC, I guess hopefully what we can learn from this brief introductory webinar today about One Health is One Health hopefully can go from merely a concept into an approach, an actual approach, and how it's actually feasible to be implemented. And we have to start from our surroundings first, like what Dr. Indah mentioned, right? How we start from little efforts, how we interact with other people in our community from different backgrounds, and then how we proceed further based on our competencies and based on our field of work, and how we work together in trying to do this multidisciplinary approach. And as you can see from the presentation, it goes beyond the pandemic issues, it goes beyond the EID. Of course, the end goal is to prevent further emerging diseases, further zoonotic diseases, but the way we approach it is we have to look at it holistically. We have to look from the population, from the humans, from the animals that's around them, not just the endangered ones that we need to protect. So basically we need to look at it from a holistic perspective. So thank you so much again, Dr. Indah and Dr. Wyatt, and also the other all the participants. And I would hand back to Diaz as the MC. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Fitria. Okay, wow, that was a very insightful and a quite deep discussion we had. Thank you very much once again to our moderator, Dr. Fitria, and our speakers, Dr. Indah and also the Prof. Wyatt, for the remarkable discussion. So let's move on to the next occasion. Also, to all the participants, I would like to remind you to please fill the attendance sheet, given in the chat box below. It is important for you to fill the attendance form because the certificate for all the participants will be based on the data we received in the form given tonight. Izin mengingatkan kepada para peserta untuk segera mengisi form kehadiran dikarenakan sertifikat digital nantinya akan dibagikan berdasarkan data yang masuk ke dalam form pada malam hari ini. Okay, move on to the next occasion. There will be a giving of certificates for the amazing moderator and speaker tonight. Please let me invite the Vice Dean of Faculty of Veterinary Medicine IPB University, Professor Niwayan Kurniarnikarja, DVM-MP PhD, to have the certificate to our speakers and moderator.
Okay, thank you for MC. The certificate award for Dr. Indah. Thank you very much for your kindness to give the material for us. Hopefully, all the material can useful for all of us. Thank you very much, Dr. Indah.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor and it's such a great event to be present with all of you. Thank you so much.
And then thank you for Prof. Wyatt for also your kindness to give us your material. Hopefully also all of your presentation this evening can useful for all of us. Thank you, Prof. Wyatt.
Thank you. I am grateful to be here, and I look forward to working with all of you in the near future as we look at curricula and programs in planetary health and One Health.
And then also thank you very much for Dr. Fitria, who arranged this webinar. Thank you for Dr. Fitria.
Thank you, Prof. Wayan. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, so thank you very much, Prof. Wayan, for giving the certificates to our amazing moderator and speakers tonight. And once again, thank you very much to our amazing moderator and speakers for the remarkable session we had tonight. So move on to the next occasion. After receiving a lot of new information, we usually feel like losing some energy, right? So in order to bring that back, the normal blood circulation, and also to recharge the energy, I would like to ask you all to relax your body first. Take a deep breath and exhale slowly. So you can follow me. Let's take a deep breath and then exhale it slowly. Okay, one more. Take a deep breath and exhale it slowly. Okay, I think we're ready now. And let's move on to the real next occasion. So to review our knowledge from the discussion today, and also maybe a little bit of ice breaking, we'll have a quiz competition. So for all of the participants, I would like to let you know that it is not a regular quiz. Because you will have the chance to win one of the 3 amazing books and e-certificate by competing in this quiz competition. So the 3 books will be announced after we get the winner. So if you're wondering what are the books are, just stay tuned and then you can join the quiz right now. So there will be 3 winners. So I hope you are prepared for the quiz. So as mentioned before, the quiz will be held on quizzes.com, quizizz.com platform. And for the steps you have to do to join is first open www.quizzes.com and then click on the enter code on the top of the right right corner. And then izinkan saya untuk menjelaskan dalam bahasa Indonesia. Buka laman www.quizzes.com, lalu klik enter code pada pojok kanan atas. And then you will be asked to type in the code for joining the game. So the code will be shown on the next screen sharing and also in the chat box. Akan ada instruksi untuk memasukkan kode. Kode akan tertera pada share screen quiz dan juga dalam kolom chat meeting ini. And then next, after entering the code, please click join. Setelah memasukkan kode, dimohon untuk para peserta mengklik join. Lalu next, when asked for a nickname, please enter your name, same as the one you are using for this Zoom. Ketika diminta untuk memasukkan nickname, dimohon untuk mengisi nama yang sama dengan format dalam Zoom meeting ini. And then lastly, wait for others to join, follow the instruction, and then play along. Diharap menunggu terlebih dahulu dengan peserta lainnya, ikuti alur kuisnya, dan selamat bermain. Okay, maybe for the comedy, you can start show the quiz. Okay, this is an important note that may I remind you that the 3 highest scorer later should screenshot the result of the quiz as a proof to claim the prize. Izin mengingatkan bahwa 3 peraih skor tertinggi nantinya wajib untuk men-screenshot hasil quiz sebagai bukti untuk mengklaim hadiah nanti kepada panitia. Okay. So we already have the link for the quiz tonight. I also want to remind you that the quiz we have tonight will have 3 special prize, which is 3 books that will be shown after the quiz is finished. Okay, so we already have the quiz in our screen. Okay, so the code is 233265. Okay, we already have 34 participants. Okay, we'll wait until a little bit more to join the quiz. Okay, so let me remind you that the quiz is only for 3 minutes only. So you better be in a hurry to join the quiz, because there will be a special prize at the end of the quiz for the 3 highest scorer for tonight's quiz. Okay, so we already have around 40 participants to join the quiz. I think we can start the quiz. It will be in 3-minute duration. Maybe for the committee, you can help me start the quiz. Okay. Very nice. We could end the right now. Let me help you. Okay. We already have the winner. Okay, for the first winner we have Harani. Second winner we have Gettaswara, Indonesia. And then the third winner we have Amalina. Okay, so congratulations to all the winners tonight. Okay, due to the limited time of the quiz, it's only 3 minutes, so we couldn't get everyone to finish the quiz. Okay, so congratulations once again for all the winners. And also for all the winners, please confirm your name that corresponds to the name you fill in the attendance form to the one of the co-hosts in this Zoom meeting right now. So, kepada para pemenang dimohon untuk konfirmasi nama yang sesuai dengan nama yang dituliskan dalam form presensi kepada salah satu co-host di Zoom meeting saat ini juga. Okay, congratulations. Maybe the committee can show us the prizes for the 3 winners tonight. Okay, so these are the ebooks for all of the winners tonight. Congratulations once again. Great job. And then next, I think we will have to move on to the next occasion. Okay, so this is the e-certificate that will be given to the winner tonight. We'll move to another session. So let us inform you and remind you that the international webinar series is not over yet. We're happy to let you know that on December 29th, at 7:45 a.m. GMT +7, there will be an international guest lecture that will be discussing about clinical practices in avian and zoo animals. What a very interesting topic, right? So if you want to attend it, you can register to ipb.link/guest-lecture-avian and zoo, or scan the barcode in the flyers or in this screen right now. You can also visit and follow our Instagram at FKH.IPB official for further information. Okay, so as an information for you that unfortunately missed some of the recent presentation from Dr. Indah and also Prof. Wyatt, don't worry, because tonight's agenda recording will be uploaded into our faculty YouTube account, FKH IPB official or FKH-IPB official. So, okay, move on to the next occasion. Okay, our respectful participants, unfortunately, we're now reaching the end of our agenda tonight. On behalf of the committee, we would like to ask for an apology for any unexpected inconvenience along the activity. We also would like to say thank you for the respectful moderator, speakers, and also all of the participants that have come tonight with such a great energy and also an active participation. I think from me, see you on the next occasion. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening and thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Terima kasih Dok Pipit, Bapak Ibu semua.
Prof. Wyatt.
Terima kasih semuanya.
Terima kasih Dok Ika.
Ika, Mas Dia.